means, gentlemen, listen closely, because what I'm about to share with you today could transform the way you carry yourself in relationships, in friendships, means, and even in casual interactions. Too many men lose respect, dignity, and even the love of their lives, not because they weren't good enough, means, but because they made mistakes that they didn't even realize were mistakes. There are things you should never do with a woman. Not if you want her respect, means not if you want her admiration, and not if you want to maintain your own self-worth. Let's talk about the 6. Number 1, never beg for her attention, means the moment you chase excessively, the moment you start calling and texting nonstop, trying to convince her of your value, you've already lost, means respect is not won by begging. A woman admires a man who values himself enough to walk away if he's not being valued. Don't reduce yourself to someone who needs approval, means be the man who gives his attention wisely, not desperately. Gentlemen, let's talk about one of the biggest mistakes men make when it comes to women, means something that slowly destroys their respect without them even realizing it. And that is begging for her attention. This doesn't always happen in obvious ways, means it's not always about literally getting down on your knees or pleading. No, it's much more subtle than that. It's the constant over-texting, means the double and triple calls when she hasn't responded, the long paragraphs explaining why you deserve a reply, the endless efforts to prove that you're worth her time, means it's doing too much for someone who isn't meeting you halfway. And whether you realize it or not, when you fall into that cycle, means you are teaching her one very dangerous lesson, that your time, your energy, and your worth are not valuable, means you are teaching her that she doesn't need to give you effort in return because you'll keep showing up regardless. Think about this, means imagine a man who gives all his attention to a woman who barely acknowledges him. Every day he texts good morning, every night he texts good night, means, and throughout the day he sends messages, compliments, even jokes, just hoping for her to smile at her phone screen. But what happens when she doesn't reply, means when she leaves him on read, when she treats his presence like background noise, does he pull back? No, he pushes harder. He believes that if he just does a little more, means says the right thing, or waits a little longer, she will eventually appreciate him. But the opposite happens. His efforts don't create attraction. They create comfort, means they create predictability. They create a sense of her being the prize and him being the chaser. And the more he chases, the further she runs, means women don't respect a man who needs them to feel complete. They respect a man who is already complete within himself. When you beg for attention, you're saying, means, I need you to validate me. I need your response, your approval, your acknowledgement to feel like I matter. And once that message is sent, even unconsciously, means respect is lost, because deep down, no woman wants to feel like she is responsible for defining a man's value. She wants to admire a man who already knows his value, means who already walks with confidence, who doesn't need her reply or her attention to feel like he's worthy. Let me give you an example. Imagine 2 men, means one of them is constantly checking his phone, waiting for her response, rearranging his day just to meet her, and dropping everything when she calls, means the other is focused on his goals, living his life with purpose, spending time with her when it's natural and enjoyable, but never chasing, means never trying to force a connection. Which man do you think she will admire more? The answer is obvious, means the second man doesn't beg for her attention because he knows his attention itself is valuable. He gives it to those who earn it, not to those who take it for granted, means that's the difference. The truth is, women can sense neediness. They can sense desperation, means. And nothing is more unattractive than a man who signals that his entire happiness depends on someone else's presence. You must understand that your attention is not cheap, means it's not something to be handed out freely to someone who isn't valuing it. Your attention should be a privilege, not a constant given. Now, I know some of you might say, means, but isn't it important to show effort? Isn't it important to prove that you care? Yes, of course it is. Effort is important in any relationship, means. But here's the key difference. Effort must be mutual. Effort should flow naturally, back and forth. When you're the only one putting in energy, means when you're the only one chasing, that's not effort, that's desperation. Healthy effort feels balanced. It feels like 2 people meeting in the middle, means not one person running a marathon while the other barely takes a step. The irony is that when you stop begging, when you stop overgiving, means when you stop making yourself constantly available, you actually become more attractive. Not because you're playing games, but because you're showing strength, means you're showing that you have a life outside of her, that you're not willing to lower your standards for temporary attention. That kind of energy commands respect, means, and respect, once it's there, leads to admiration, which in turn creates attraction. So many men lose themselves in this trap. They confuse persistence with desperation. Means they believe that if they just keep knocking at the door, eventually she'll open it. But here's the reality: the right woman doesn't make you beg to be noticed. Means she doesn't ignore your value. She doesn't force you to explain yourself just to feel acknowledged. The right woman meets you halfway, means, and the wrong woman will let you keep giving until you have nothing left. And let me tell you, means, the most powerful thing a man can do is to recognize when he's giving too much to someone who's giving too little, and then have the strength to pull back. Means not out of anger, not out of revenge, but out of self-respect. To say, means, my time and my attention are too valuable to be wasted on someone who doesn't appreciate them. That's not arrogance, that's dignity. And women, means, whether they admit it or not, respect a man who carries himself with that level of dignity. Gentlemen, begging for attention is a silent killer of respect. Means it may feel harmless, it may feel like love, it may feel like dedication, but what it truly communicates is insecurity, and insecurity never builds lasting attraction. Means you must learn to value yourself enough to walk away from situations where your energy isn't reciprocated, because the moment you stop begging, means the moment you stop chasing what doesn't value you is the moment you become the kind of man who naturally attracts what does, means. And that is the kind of man worth being. Number 2, never tolerate disrespect. If she belittles you, mocks your goals, or speaks down to you in public or private, means, and you say nothing, you've told her exactly what your boundaries are, none. A real man doesn't fight disrespect with aggression, but with quiet strength. Means you let her know calmly and firmly that respect is the foundation of any connection. If it's not there, means neither should you be. There's something every man needs to understand deeply, and that is the matter of respect. Respect is not just a word, means. It's the foundation of every meaningful relationship. Without it, love cannot survive, attraction cannot last, and connection cannot grow. Means too many men fall into the trap of tolerating disrespect, and they do it quietly, thinking it's no big deal, thinking it's just a passing moment, or worse, means convincing themselves that maybe they deserve it. But let me tell you, the moment you allow disrespect, even in the smallest form, you begin to teach her how to treat you. Means disrespect can come in many forms. It could be subtle, sarcasm that cuts too deep, dismissing your opinions, rolling her eyes when you speak, means talking down to you in front of others. Or it could be direct, shouting at you, belittling your dreams, mocking your ambitions, making you feel small just to elevate herself, means. And here's the mistake men make: they stay silent. They think it's not worth starting an argument, or maybe she didn't mean it, or if I just ignore it, means it'll stop. But it doesn't stop. In fact, silence fuels it, because silence communicates acceptance. What you don't address, you are indirectly allowing. Means understand this: women do not respect a man who allows himself to be walked over. They might test boundaries, they might push to see how much you're willing to tolerate, means, but deep down they are observing how you respond. Do you stand firm with quiet strength, or do you shrink into the background hoping it will pass? When you ignore disrespect, means you're not being peaceful, you're being passive, and passivity is not attractive, nor is it respected. Now, I am not saying that the answer is to respond with aggression. Means a real man doesn't need to shout, doesn't need to slam his fists on the table, doesn't need to get angry just to prove he has boundaries. That is not strength. Means that is insecurity in disguise. Real strength is calm. Real strength is in looking someone in the eye and saying with steady confidence, means, I will not allow you to speak to me that way. It's in setting the line with dignity and composure. That balance between firmness and calmness is what earns respect. Means because it shows you are in control of yourself, and a man who can control himself can control the direction of his life. Means, I want you to think about what happens when a man tolerates disrespect for too long. Slowly, he loses his sense of worth. He begins to doubt himself. Means he starts to shrink his dreams, he avoids expressing his thoughts, and he molds himself into someone he is not, just to keep the peace. Means, but peace that comes at the cost of your dignity is not peace at all, it's slow destruction. And eventually he becomes bitter, resentful, means, and broken, not because of the woman, but because he failed to honor his own standards. Respect is not negotiable. You cannot buy it with gifts. Means, you cannot earn it by overgiving, and you cannot force it by demanding it. Respect is commanded by the way you carry yourself and the boundaries you set. Means, when you show a woman that you respect yourself, she has no choice but to respect you as well, or she removes herself because she cannot treat you the way she wants. Means, and let me tell you, both outcomes are victories, because either you gain her respect or you make space for someone who will give it naturally. Means, some men confuse tolerance with love. They believe that to truly love a woman, they must endure anything, even disrespect. Means, but love without respect is not love, it is control. If she loves you, she will not repeatedly cross your boundaries. If she values you, means, she will not use her words to cut you down. And if she does, and you remain silent, you are teaching her that love is unbalanced. Means that she can give less while you keep giving more. That is not love. That is sacrifice at the expense of your soul. Means, there's a saying that people treat you the way you allow them to. That couldn't be more true in relationships. Means, a woman will always admire a man who calmly but firmly holds his standards. He doesn't need to beg for kindness. He doesn't need to lecture for hours. Means, he doesn't need to threaten to leave. His actions, his composure, and his ability to walk away if necessary speak louder than any words could. Means, and that kind of man is unforgettable. So ask yourself honestly, what have you been tolerating that you shouldn't? Means, where have you remained silent when you should have spoken up? Where have you allowed someone's words or actions to cut you down without standing your ground? Means, because every time you allow it, you chip away at your own self-respect. But the moment you decide to draw the line, to say with calm strength, means no more, you immediately begin to rebuild it. And once you respect yourself enough not to accept disrespect, means you change the entire dynamic of how people interact with you. Not just women, but everyone. Gentlemen, remember this. Means, a relationship without respect is like a house without a foundation. No matter how beautiful it looks from the outside, it will eventually collapse. Means, and it won't collapse because of storms, but because it was never built strong in the first place. Don't let that be your story. Never tolerate disrespect. Number 3, means, never lie just to impress her. You don't need to fabricate stories, exaggerate achievements, or pretend to be something you're not. Means, authenticity is far more attractive than perfection. Lies may win her interest in the short term, but they will cost you trust in the long run. Means, a woman can sense when you're not being real, and nothing destroys connection faster than dishonesty. Another mistake men often make is thinking they need to lie, exaggerate, means, or pretend in order to impress a woman. It might be small lies, the kind you tell yourself don't really matter. Saying you've traveled to places you've never been. Means, inflating your achievements, pretending to have connections you don't, or even acting like you're more confident, more successful, or more experienced than you truly are. Means, and for a brief moment, maybe it works. Maybe she raises an eyebrow with interest. Maybe she smiles a little brighter. Maybe she sees you as more than you are. Means, but here's the truth. Lies are built on fragile ground, and anything built on them eventually crumbles. Women are far more intuitive than many men realize. Means, they may not catch every lie instantly, but they can feel when something is off. They can sense when the story doesn't align with your energy. Means, when your words don't match your actions, or when you're speaking from a place of performance instead of authenticity. And once she senses that, even slightly, means the seed of doubt is planted. And trust me, doubt is a poison in relationships. Means, it doesn't matter how charming you are or how well you carry yourself. Once doubt takes root, it begins to eat away at trust. But beyond whether or not she catches you, means, the bigger problem is what lying says about you. When you lie to impress a woman, you are silently admitting that who you are is not enough. You are saying, means, the real me won't be admired, so I need to wear a mask. And what happens when you wear a mask too long? You lose yourself beneath it. Means you start living a performance instead of a truth, and it's exhausting. A man who constantly needs to perform eventually breaks down because authenticity is freedom. Means and dishonesty is a cage. Ask yourself honestly, what kind of relationship can grow from lies? Even if she believes your story, even if she falls for the image you created, means deep down you will always know it wasn't you she admired, it was the mask. And sooner or later, the mask will slip, because no one can keep pretending forever. Means when that happens, the disappointment cuts deeper than if you had been honest from the beginning. She won't just be upset about what you lied about. Means she'll lose trust in everything you said. She'll wonder, if he lied about this, what else has he lied about? And once trust is broken, respect quickly follows. Means the truth is, honesty is far more attractive than perfection. A man who is genuine, who owns his story, who admits his flaws but also stands confidently in his strengths, means commands more respect than the man who fabricates an illusion. Because women don't connect with perfection, they connect with truth. Means they don't admire a man who hides his struggles. They admire a man who is honest about them but still chooses to rise above them. Think about it. Means if you meet a woman and instead of pretending you're someone you're not, you say, this is where I'm at, this is what I'm working on, means this is what I want from life. You may not impress everyone, but the right one will admire your authenticity. She'll see your honesty as courage. Means and courage is magnetic because honesty takes bravery. It's easy to pretend, it's easy to polish a fake version of yourself. Means but it takes a strong man to be vulnerable enough to stand as he is and say, this is me. And I want you to understand something important. Means lies may create attraction in the short term, but honesty builds connection in the long term. A woman may smile at your exaggerated story today, means, but she will build a life with the man whose words she can trust tomorrow. Think about the kind of life you want to build. Means is it one where you constantly worry about keeping up appearances, where you're always trying to remember which version of the story you told? Means, or is it one where you can relax in your truth, where your word carries weight because it's consistent, where your presence feels safe because it's real? When you lie, means you gamble with your self-respect. You may win a moment of admiration, but you lose integrity. And integrity is not something you can fake. Means integrity is what makes people trust you when you speak. It's what makes your presence solid. It's what makes your character undeniable. Means a man with integrity may not impress everyone instantly, but over time he earns something far greater than temporary admiration. He earns trust. Means there's something powerful about a man who doesn't need to exaggerate, who doesn't need to put on a show, who simply stands in his truth. He doesn't say, means, look at me, I'm everything you want. He says, this is who I am, and if that's not enough, means I'm still at peace with myself. That kind of confidence is irresistible because it tells her you are not dependent on her approval to feel worthy. And ironically, means when you don't need approval, that's when you often gain it. So remember this every time you're tempted to lie to impress a woman. Means remind yourself that the real you is far more powerful than any illusion. Lies may get attention, but truth earns respect. And at the end of the day, attention fades. Means but respect endures. Never lie just to impress her. Number 4, never put her above your purpose, your mission, your goals. Means your vision for life. These are what give you direction. When a man abandons his purpose just to please a woman, means he loses the very thing that made him attractive in the first place. Love her, respect her, but never forget why you wake up every morning. Means a man anchored in his purpose is unshakable, and that's exactly the kind of man a woman admires. One of the greatest mistakes men make, and perhaps the most costly, means is forgetting their purpose the moment a woman enters their life. It starts subtly. You begin skipping your routines, delaying your goals, putting off your ambitions. Means all because you want to spend more time with her. At first, It feels innocent. It feels like love. It feels like devotion. Means you convince yourself that you're just showing her she's a priority. But slowly, without even realizing it, means you begin to lose the very thing that made you attractive to her in the first place, your direction, your drive, your sense of mission. You see, means every man is born with a purpose. That purpose may not always be clear, and it may take years to fully understand, but deep inside, there is something calling you forward. Means it could be building a career, creating a business, mastering an art, serving a cause, or leaving a legacy for your family. Whatever it is, it gives your life meaning. Means it gives you fire, it gives you direction. And when you abandon that fire, when you push your mission aside for the sake of a relationship, means you not only lose yourself, you lose her respect. A woman admires a man with vision. She admires a man who wakes up every morning with intention. Means who knows where he's going, who has goals larger than just winning her attention. When you give up your purpose to focus entirely on her, she may appreciate it for a moment. Means, but soon she'll sense something is off. She'll feel the lack of drive, the absence of passion, the emptiness that comes when a man forgets his mission. And deep down, means she cannot respect a man who has lost respect for himself. I've seen so many men fall into this trap. They enter a relationship full of ambition, full of dreams, but slowly, means they let it slip. Instead of working late on their goals, they stay up all night on calls. Instead of investing in their growth, means they spend everything trying to entertain and impress. Instead of chasing the bigger vision, they chase moments of temporary validation. And what happens? Means not only do they lose their identity, but ironically, they also lose the woman they sacrificed it all for. Because when a man puts her above his purpose, he becomes dependent. Means he becomes needy. He becomes predictable, and nothing kills attraction faster than a man who no longer challenges himself or inspires her. Now, means I am not saying that you should neglect her or ignore the relationship. Love requires presence, effort, and commitment, but balance is everything. Means your purpose must remain at the center, and your relationship should complement it, not replace it. The most attractive man is not the one who says, means I will give up everything for you. The most attractive man is the one who says, I love you, I value you, means, but I also have a mission I was born to fulfill, and nothing will take me away from it. That man is magnetic. That man is respected. That man doesn't just give love, means he inspires it. And understand this, when you stay true to your purpose, you actually give more to the relationship. A man with purpose brings energy, passion, means, and vision into everything he does. He has something to share beyond his affection. He has stories, experiences, victories, and lessons that enrich her life as well. Means, but when you abandon your mission, you eventually become empty. And from emptiness, you cannot give. Means, that's why so many relationships built on obsession instead of balance end up in resentment. Because no matter how much you give her, means if you're not fulfilled within yourself, it will never feel enough. Think about the men who inspire you, the ones you look up to. Means, are they the men who sacrifice their dreams just to hold on to someone? Or are they the men who stayed committed to their vision, who chased their calling relentlessly? Means, who carried themselves with such strength that love naturally followed them. Great men are remembered because they honored their purpose. Means, and the women who stood beside them did so because they admired that unshakable dedication. A man who lives for his purpose is never truly lost. Means, no matter what happens in his relationships. But a man who abandons his purpose for a woman will always find himself empty if the relationship falters. Means, that's why your foundation must never be her. It must be your mission. She can walk with you. She can support you. She can even inspire you. Means, but she must never replace the reason you exist. So I ask you, what is your purpose? What is that fire inside you that keeps you moving forward? And are you living it daily? Means, or have you placed it on hold for the sake of someone else? Because if you've forgotten it, if you've neglected it, means, if you've made her the center of your world while losing your own, then you've already started down a dangerous path. The truth is, means, the right woman doesn't want you to abandon your mission. She wants to be inspired by it. She wants to know that she's walking beside a man who is going somewhere. Means, a man who refuses to settle, a man whose ambition gives her reason to admire him even more. When you honor your purpose, means, You don't just gain her respect, you ignite her admiration. And admiration is the glue that holds attraction together. So never put her above your purpose, means because your purpose is who you are, and when you honor it, you naturally become the kind of man who commands respect, love, means, and loyalty without ever having to beg for it. Number 5, never ignore red flags. Men often see signs, disloyalty, manipulative behavior, means lack of respect, but they convince themselves it will change. It won't. Hoping that red flags will disappear is like hoping fire will stop burning. Means don't let loneliness or infatuation blind you. The moment you see a pattern of toxic behavior, step back. Means protect your peace before it costs you everything. Another mistake men often make, and one that costs them not just relationships but years of their lives, means is ignoring red flags. You see, it's easy to get blinded when you're caught up in attraction. Means it's easy to convince yourself that what you're seeing isn't really there, or that somehow with enough patience, love, or effort, things will change. Means, but ignoring red flags is like ignoring cracks in the foundation of a building. You can paint over the walls, you can decorate the rooms, means you can make it look beautiful on the outside, but eventually those cracks will tear the whole structure apart. Red flags rarely show up loudly at first, they whisper. Means they reveal themselves in small ways: inconsistent behavior, broken promises, a lack of accountability, disrespect towards others, dishonesty, or signs of manipulation. Means at the beginning you notice them, but because the chemistry is strong, or because you don't want to lose her, you brush them aside. You tell yourself it's nothing. Means you rationalize. You say, means she'll change, or it's not that serious, or I can handle it. But every time you silence that voice inside you that says something is off, means you betray yourself a little more. The problem with ignoring red flags is that they never disappear, they grow. That little lie becomes bigger lies. Means that subtle disrespect becomes full-blown disregard. That small controlling habit becomes suffocating. And by the time you realize how deep you're in, means it feels almost impossible to walk away, because now you've invested time, energy, and emotions. You've convinced yourself you can't start over. But the truth is, means the longer you ignore the signs, the higher the price you pay. It's not just about her behavior. It's about what ignoring it does to you. Means every time you excuse something you shouldn't, you're lowering your own standards. You're teaching yourself that your boundaries don't matter. Means that your peace is less important than keeping someone by your side. And over time, you stop recognizing yourself. Means you begin to accept things you once swore you'd never tolerate. You start living in a cycle of disappointment and justification. And deep down, means you know you've abandoned your own self-respect. Gentlemen, I want you to hear this clearly. Love without respect is not love, and commitment without trust is not security. Means if you see consistent patterns of dishonesty, if you feel disrespected, if you notice manipulation or lack of accountability, those are not quirks, those are not small issues. Means those are warning signs. And the sooner you listen to them, the more strength you will save yourself. The irony is men often ignore red flags out of fear of losing the woman. Means but in the process, they lose themselves. They hold on tighter to someone who is showing them with their actions that they're not worthy of that kind of devotion. Means. And the harsh truth is this: if you have to constantly convince yourself to overlook things that hurt you, you're not in love, you're in denial. Means you must understand that walking away from a red flag doesn't make you weak. It makes you wise. It doesn't mean you're giving up. Means it means you're refusing to settle for less than you deserve. It means you respect yourself enough to say, if this doesn't align with my peace, my values, means, and my vision, then it's not for me. That kind of strength is rare, but it is necessary. Means because the right woman will never make you compromise your dignity just to keep her. Think about it this way: when you ignore red flags, you're gambling with your future. Means you're betting that temporary attraction will somehow outweigh permanent dysfunction. But no matter how strong the chemistry feels today, if the foundation is broken, means the structure will collapse tomorrow. And when it does, the pain will be far greater than the discomfort of walking away early. Now, let me be clear. Nobody is perfect. Means we all have flaws, we all make mistakes, we all carry baggage. But there's a difference between human imperfection and toxic patterns. Flaws can be worked on, means growth can be achieved, but red flags are about consistent behavior that violates respect, trust, or peace. Those are not things you can fix in someone else. Means those are things they must choose to fix themselves. And if they don't, it's not your job to wait around, hoping one day they will. So the question is, means, do you trust yourself enough to walk when you need to? Do you value your future enough to let go of what's destroying your present? Means, do you believe you're worthy of a relationship that doesn't require you to constantly silence your instincts just to stay in it? Because if you don't, means you'll keep finding yourself in cycles of pain, repeating the same lessons until you finally learn that ignoring red flags is the most expensive mistake a man can make. Means, gentlemen, ignoring red flags doesn't protect a relationship. It only delays its destruction. Pay attention to what you see, not just what you feel. Means, because the moment you honor the truth of your instincts, you protect not just your heart, but your entire future. Never ignore red flags. Number 6 means never lose your self-respect. This is the foundation of it all. If you don't respect yourself, no one else will. Means don't allow yourself to be in situations where you're constantly compromising your values, your dignity, or your worth. Means a man who respects himself sets the standard for how others treat him, including women. Of all the mistakes a man can make with a woman, there is one that sits above them all. Means one that quietly destroys everything he has worked for, everything he has built, and everything he could become. That mistake is losing his self-respect. Means because once a man loses his self-respect, he loses the very core of who he is. And without it, nothing else matters. Not love, not attraction, not even success. Means self-respect is the foundation of a man's strength. It is the silent power in the way he carries himself, the calm in his words, the conviction in his choices. Means the discipline in his actions. When a man respects himself, he doesn't need to demand respect from others. It is naturally given. Means he sets the standard without even speaking. People notice the way he moves, the way he holds his boundaries, the way he honors his own values. Means, and they realize immediately that this is not a man to be taken lightly. But when a man loses self-respect, everything unravels. He begins to tolerate what he shouldn't. Means he lowers his standards just to keep someone in his life. He says yes when his heart is screaming no. He hides his truth to avoid conflict. Means he silences his voice to keep the peace. He bends until he breaks, all because he fears losing her. And the irony is, means the very act of doing this is what makes her lose interest in him, because deep down, no woman can truly admire a man who doesn't admire himself. Think about it. Means a man who respects himself doesn't need to beg for attention because he knows his attention has value. A man who respects himself never tolerates disrespect. Means because he understands that his peace cannot be negotiated. A man who respects himself doesn't lie to impress. Means because he trusts that the truth of who he is already enough. A man who respects himself never abandons his purpose because he knows his mission is sacred. Means a man who respects himself never ignores red flags because he values his future too much to gamble it on dysfunction. Do you see how everything comes back to this one truth? Means self-respect is the root. Lose it and you lose all the rest. So how does a man lose it? Slowly, quietly, piece by piece, he gives a little too much of himself away. Means he allows things that eat at his soul. He convinces himself that being silent is easier than standing firm. Means he tells himself that compromising who he is will somehow make her love him more. But here's the reality. Love without respect is not love at all. Means you cannot buy love with self-betrayal. You cannot keep love by lowering yourself. And every time you do, you not only lose her admiration, you lose your own. Means when a man can no longer look in the mirror with pride, when he knows deep down he has abandoned his principles for the sake of someone else, means he feels a heaviness that no relationship can fix. Because no matter how much she gives him after that, means it will never erase the truth that he gave away something priceless, his dignity. And once dignity is gone, everything else becomes hollow. Means but when a man protects his self-respect, when he treats it as something untouchable, he becomes unshakable. He can love deeply without losing himself. Means he can commit fully without ever compromising his core. He can give his heart but still protect his soul. Means and that balance, that strength, is what makes him truly powerful in the eyes of a woman, because she knows she cannot bend him against his values. Means She knows she cannot make him betray himself, and that very strength makes her trust him, admire him, and respect him more. Gentlemen, hear me clearly, means self-respect is not arrogance. It is not stubbornness. It is not refusing to compromise on small things. Means self-respect is simply knowing your worth and refusing to trade it for temporary attention, temporary affection, or temporary comfort. Means it is the quiet discipline of honoring yourself, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Means because there will be moments when standing firm costs you something. Maybe it costs you her approval. Maybe it costs you the relationship altogether. Means, but if it preserves your dignity, it's a cost worth paying. At the end of the day, the most attractive thing a man can offer is not his looks, not his money. Means, not even his charm, it is his self-respect. Because a man who respects himself sets the tone for how others treat him. He sets the boundaries, he defines the standards. Means, he protects his peace, and he never allows anyone to pull him away from his truth. That is the kind of man who not only earns love, but keeps it. Means, because real love cannot exist without respect, and respect always begins within. So never lose your self-respect, because once you do, everything else begins to fall apart. Means, protect it, honor it, and live by it. Because when you respect yourself, the world has no choice but to respect you too. Gentlemen, means these are 6 things you should never do with women. Never beg for attention, never tolerate disrespect, never lie, never put her above your purpose, never ignore red flags. Means, and never lose your self-respect. Do this, and you'll not only gain the admiration of women, you'll gain the respect of yourself. And that respect, that is priceless.